It's not about the monster at sea. It's not about that thrilling music that gives you goosebumps every time you hear it. It's not about the way it makes you feel about every time you go swimming in the ocean. It's not even about being a fish out of water in your own town. It's about what ordinary people do in extraordinary situations. It's all psychological. You yell barracuda, everybody says, huh? What? You yell shark. We've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July. This is Jaws.
Dunham. Dunham.
Isn't there this thing with like, if you even sing or hum a song, you can get like DMCA'd?
Is that a thing?
Yeah, because I've heard like podcasts just be like, oh wait, don't hum it or don't sing it. We have to pay for that or whatever, you know? So I don't know.
Okay, well,
Now
that's
you
a
owe-
risk I'm willing to take for this episode.
Now you owe me money, man. You owe me
Oh,
money.
yeah, you particularly money. Yeah, not John Williams or any of them.
You don't you don't owe the John Williams estate. You owe me. Today we're talking about Jaws.
Oh boy, are we?
So excited. Oh boy, are we is kind of your catchphrase, I feel like.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's a big one.
I've been saying that one for years.
Yeah, since the reaction days. I'm really excited. I'm holding off on talking about it right now just because I'll go into a tangent. So let me just get right into the intro. Welcome to Movies That Changed Us. I'm Altaf.
And I'm Chris.
And today we're talking about how Jaws changed us.
And we do have a Patreon, guys. If anyone likes the show and wants to support us, you can go to patreon.com/movies that changed us. And we do have our new bonus show called Movies That Played Us, where Altaf and I play movie-based quizzes and games that we custom make for each other. Last time I made it for Altaf, and it was Guess the Movie Food, and I cropped in a bunch of pictures of food from different movies, and he had to guess what they were. This go around, Altaf made me a game, and I don't know what it's going to be, but I think he's about to tell me momentarily.
It's Guess the Movie Weapon.
Okay. Oh, hell yeah. All right. I'm excited for that one.
So go over to our Patreon at Movies That Changed Us to see Chris play that. It'll be a fun time. Chris, let's get to it. Let's stop fucking around here. What art moved you this week?
That was a hardcore segue right there. Okay, so I got two this time, or 2.5. For one thing, last week I saw the new Final Destination. It's called Bloodlines, and I actually really enjoyed it. It was really fun, and I think it's like critically the best reviewed Final Destination movie out of all of them, which is pretty cool. It does a really good job of kind of tying together the other Final Destination movies, and not in like a hacky way, but kind of like adding something new to the series without, because they're all kind of samey, right? When you watch a Final Destination movie, you see one and generally they're all kind of the same and you go in knowing what to expect. This one actually tried with like a storyline and like emotional arcs.
Well, yeah, when I first heard that, before you saw it, another one of my friends saw it. He's like, oh yeah, it explains some things. It ties things together. I groaned out loud because I'm like, God, I don't want like to know about the Final Destination lore. And like, he was like, no, it does it in like a good way. It's not annoying.
100%. Yeah, it doesn't overdo it or anything like that by any means. It still very much respects what a Final Destination movie is. Like it knows what, like in terms of editing, pacing, and how to build the tension, it knows what you're going to be looking for to stress you out.
That's
if
cool.
That makes any sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really enjoyed that. The other one, the other art that moved me was I went down kind of like a mental rabbit hole. I'm gonna find it real quick because I already almost forgot what it's called. But there was like a commercial that I saw as a kid. Like that was like either something on TV or I couldn't remember, but I remembered the idea of it. So I started Googling just random phrases. And SNL is like Mr. Bill, like that little puppet doll dude that's like, hello, how you doing? And he's always getting hurt and shit.
No.
Okay. I don't really know much about him either, to be completely frank. So if any listeners know more than I do, feel free to info dump me in the comments. But I saw a trailer commercial for like his TV show as a kid, and I didn't remember what it was for, but I remember it always kind of creeped me out.
Okay.
And so I tried to find it on YouTube, and I found it. It was on like Fox Family, like that channel back in the day in like the 90s, 2000s or whatever.
Okay.
And you know what it was from? The comments verified this for me. It was from the VHS, like the commercials that play in the beginning of VHS tapes. It was the VHS for Casper Meets Wendy. Did you ever see that movie?
No.
You know Casper the Friendly Ghost?
Of course.
Casper Meets Wendy was like Hilary Duff's first movie. She was like a little girl in it.
Oh, wow.
And it was a movie I owned on VHS. And it was one of the commercials during that because I watched it religiously as a kid because we all just had VHS tapes that we watched again and again.
Oh my God.
So,
it's like little Hillary Duff in a little red
it's little
outfit.
baby Hillary Duff.
Yeah.
No. And it says
Shelley
in the credits.
Duvall's in it.
Well, that's what I was going to get at. It's like the cast. It's like Pauly Shore's in it too.
Casper Van Dien? Oh my God. Yeah,
So,
Pauly Shore.
the whole movie's on YouTube. I found it, so I watched like the first 15 minutes of it on YouTube.
Yeah, this very much like tracks for you. Like, if we weren't on the podcast and you just told me this on the phone, I'd be like, oh, that's cool. Like, I wouldn't be surprised at all because it just seems like bullshit that you do. You guys don't know this, obviously, but like me and Chris, when we were roommates, I used to just like kind of see from my peripherals Chris on his laptop, and he'd have like 90 tabs open.
I had the most ADHD computer setup possible.
And you never know what's on those tabs. And I was like, hey, Chris, what are you watching? And he'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm just watching an open heart surgery. I'm like, what the fuck is... And that's a true story. One time he was just randomly watching an open heart surgery.
Yeah, I get, I don't know. I just watch shit I feel like watching. So, point is, though, I got closure on that. Finally.
Yeah, no, I'm very glad you got closure on it. Like...
But so that's the art that moved me this week. Oh, then the 2.5 just to throw a quick shouty, I guess.
God,
is
2.5.
I watched like the first half or so, like maybe just over half of The Bourne Identity yesterday.
Oh, you can't count that. Family. You didn't even finish the movie.
That's why I said 2.5. Calm down.
How could any? Okay.
What? Why aren't you counting that? Why is that even like a source of
I think
conflict?
watching a certain percentage of a movie doesn't count. I think. I don't know.
Okay, listeners, let me know if you think that's like I shouldn't bring up Bourne Identity. Yeah, that doesn't count. I don't want that in the episode.
Okay, no, sorry. Complete your thought. Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I was gonna just kind of run by it real quick, but I watched like a chunk of Bourne Identity. Still badass movie. I watched it with some family. I haven't seen it since I was probably like in high school, and so I just appreciate it again. And I don't know, just a lot of the action still holds up.
Where did you stop again? You told me, but just for the audience, where did you stop?
It was like sometime after the Paris car chase scene and after she like cut her hair. After they cut the girl's hair.
Oh, that's a great scene too.
Yeah.
I think what I like about that movie is that aside from like all the really cool thriller and spy elements of that movie, there's a lot of like tiny moments of humanity, like the hair cutting scene and all that stuff. Like I really like that stuff.
100%. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And that's like an underrated trilogy, I feel like. And maybe it's because like it's had duds afterwards, like Bourne Legacy, and then even when Matt Damon came back with Jason Bourne, that was a dud. So like people kind of forget that first trilogy is kind of one of the great trilogies.
Yeah, that's true. It's not talked about a lot. It's not like an underground independent movie or anything like that, but it just hasn't really like stood the test of time in terms of like cultural relevance.
Yeah, those movies were super successful when they came out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what art moved you this week?
So since we recorded our most recent episode like on Wednesday, we recorded our Roger Rabbit episode like less than a week ago. I've been super busy since then, so I haven't watched that many new movies. I haven't listened to that much new music. I haven't really like all the stuff that I would usually talk about. But the one thing that I did consume that was new was like Mike Birbiglia's new special, The Good Life.
Okay.
I love Mike Birbiglia. He's one of my favorite comedians. If you guys don't know him, he's well known for not just doing stand-up comedy, but storytelling specifically. Like his specials veer from like joke punchline to also like, oh, now I'm having a very sincere moment on stage about when I had type 2 diabetes or when I had bladder cancer at the age of 23 or like, so like he talks about serious topics, but then weaves it in through comedy. And this special, The Good Life, was about how his daughter is turning 8 and he wants to teach her about life, but he makes a joke about like when they pass the age of 7, you realize how dumb you are as a parent, where you're like, oh, I don't know everything. And then at the same time, his dad gets very sick. His dad has a stroke.
Wow.
And he has to teach his daughter about what a stroke is. And he's like, oh shit, I have no idea how to explain this to her. And so, and then the whole thesis of it is like, how do I explain to my daughter what the good life is? Like, what is the good life?
Hmm.
Very deep, very emotional, but also extremely funny. It has some jokes that I'm still thinking about. So it's on Netflix.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, because I like, I like stuff that can get deep at the same time as being funny. I like that stuff. I'm
That's
down to
Mike
check that out.
Birbiglia. Like his previous special, Old Man in the Pool, was really good too. That probably is my favorite one. But they're all on Netflix if you guys want to check it out. He also has a great podcast. I mean, no free ads. We're not sponsored, but
I always like we're such a small podcast, but we're like, guys, just letting you know, we're not just gonna send the army over to them.
yeah, we're not gonna be fucking sellouts over here. God damn it.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah,
I know
exactly.
we live in this get your bag era, but here at Nice Dude, at Movies That Changed Us, we're not about that.
Yeah, just go on the Patreon instead. Okay.
Yeah, and watch our bonus episode on a Patreon, Movies That Played Us, patreon.com/movies that played us.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
Movies That Changed Us, sorry.
We don't bow to corporate sponsors.
Chris, how did Jaws change you?
Oh man, I'm scared of this question.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. So I wish I remembered when I first watched Jaws, but okay. My memory is a little fuzzy on this, so please forgive me. I think I normally have a pretty good memory when it comes to these certain things because these are like kind of mildly profound when it comes to you know, my movie watching history. I did read the script to Jaws at one point when I was younger, when I was like in high school.
Oh
I don't
wow.
remember if I watched it or if I read it before watching the movie or if I watched it and then read the script, or sometimes I do a little bit of both where I'll read some of the script, watch some of the movie, read some of the script, watch some of the movie.
From a young age, I will say, this was not when you were in screenwriting school. You, like you said, you were in high school when you were doing this.
Yeah, this is high school territory. And but I mean, it's one of those movies that now, yeah, everyone's heard of Jaws growing up. Even if you haven't watched it yet, everyone knows it. Everyone knows the poster for it. I knew that movie was in my peripheral. Like my mom talked about how terrified she was after watching it. That she didn't want to take baths. She saw when she was a little girl, and I didn't start really, really appreciating it. I think until fairly recently, probably within the like less than 10 years ago, and then watching it again, just a couple days ago for this podcast virtually every choice is like perfect. Like it's hard to really explain because I think like that it just sounds kind of sterile to a listener. It's like, oh, everything's perfect about the movie. But I don't know how else to really convey my feelings around this movie without saying that because you watch it, every choice, every like angle, every blocking choice, every little detail you see in there, it tells the story exactly as it needs to be told. And it's kind of fucking mind blowing that it still functions so well to this day. So that's my general answer.
I agree. I had the same experience as you where I was thinking about when I first watched it. Don't quite remember that because it was one of those movies that was like either always on TV, um, and there were points where I'm like, as a kid, it would just be like Jaws is on TV, and I didn't even know which were the sequels and which weren't. It was just like Jaws, it was like one thing to me. I
That's
remember
true.
I remember my dad would talk about it. My dad would be like, "Oh, Jaws is that great shark movie." But it was never like my movie growing up. It wasn't a movie that I got obsessed over. I was also not a horror kid. You know what I mean? I didn't get into horror itself as a genre until recently.
Probably like 5 years ago or something, right?
Totally. And so, like, even growing up in high school and college, Jaws wasn't my Spielberg movie. Jaws was more, I was more interested in the myth behind it. As I got into filmmaking, I just heard the shark didn't work. Spielberg was only 26 when he made it. This is the famous this shot he just ripped from Hitchcock. You know what I mean?
And the music
Oh,
too. He thought it was a joke when he first heard it. All that stuff.
exactly. Like John Williams is a genius. He's the same guy who did Star Wars. So I just heard about that. I didn't emotionally connect with it until 2022. It got re-released in IMAX. And I was like, well, I got to see this. I saw it at the AMC Burbank IMAX, which if you don't live in LA, that's like that's a popular spot in LA for like a lot of new releases. Like most new releases, people, that is the biggest spot to go to. It's not the biggest theater, but that is like a popular spot. And seeing Jaws, a movie that came out in 1975, play in a theater where I would see Avengers Endgame or something like that, right? And it play to the crowd the exact same way a modern blockbuster would. And everyone around me, including myself, were like moved by every single moment. I was fucking blown away. And so rewatching it for this podcast, there was not a single moment where I wasn't engaged, I wasn't involved with what these characters were doing, and I never wanted it to end. Like, this is, like you said, a perfect movie, and I don't know, like, sometimes I'm just like, we fucking did it. Humans made Jaws. Like, we made Jaws, and who needs sex when you can just watch Jaws? Like, who needs, like, also, you know, like, imagine living in a world where Jaws didn't exist as a movie. Like, you know, I'm just like,
it's like a world without Coca-Cola or something like that. You know what I mean? It's just like, what? That's just worse without it.
Except Jaws is actually good for you. Like, I feel like if you watch Jaws, you're a more well-rounded, better person for it.
It nourishes the soul. Yeah, 100%. I think as well, another thing that makes this movie so effective, and obviously this is naturally what we're going to get into, but it taps into different fears because it's a horror movie of sorts. You know, obviously people debate on the different genre blending that this movie has, but I think the biggest piece of the pie is horror. And what's cool about it though is that the horror is like a lot of different pieces of the psyche that it could tap into for different people. You know, because like there's like the most primal part of it that's just a man-eating shark. That alone is fucking scary on its own, right? That's always gonna be scary.
Yeah.
But then there's also like you know, the fear of society in general, because you see how they're like politically, how they're trying to handle the beaches, trying to close it and all this stuff. And then there's also the fear of like the weight of the responsibility that, you know, Chief Brody goes through too.
Yeah.
And how like all of them kind of are trying to out macho each other in their own ways when they're all traveling. There's like different parts of it that have like this kind of this manhood energy.
I want to start here with your point of like how humans are handling this, because that was the thing I said in my synopsis. Like, so when I saw this in 2022, we were just coming out of like lockdown, right? There's still a lot of people that still didn't feel safe going to a movie theater, even back in 2022.
Yeah.
I remember my audience that I saw it with kind of having nervous chuckles at things that the mayor was saying. Which was like,
yeah,
especially stuff like, and we were all wearing masks. Like I was still wearing a mask in the theater because it was like not safe still. And I remember lines where he would just be like, we can't close down. This is how we make money. We can't, don't say anything. You're just going to scare them. And I'm not saying his exact quotes, I'm paraphrasing, but I remember my audience having nervous chuckles because we all are just now getting out of a worldwide pandemic where we saw especially in America, we saw our leaders like handle this in a myriad of different ways, but primarily being denial.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
we've also seen people around us, family members, our friends handle it differently. I wrote down like we dealt with whatever Amityville's dealing with. We dealt with denial. We dealt with fear. We also dealt with general curiosity. I mean, like, what is this thing? And then also like this complex, this ego complex of just like, I don't have it. I'm going to figure it out. All that stuff. Or like, we figured it out. I got the Johnson vaccine. I'm good. Like the rush to be like, I'm good. It's fine. You know?
Oh yes, shouty to the Johnson vaccine. You know, remember when that was the whole thing?
Well, that's what I thought about when they caught the tiger shark and they were so happy with themselves. That's how I felt like that. It kind of did remind me when the first round of vaccines came out and suddenly we're like, why are you still wearing a fucking masks? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If someone would ask you. So yeah, that really, I thought about COVID the entire time watching this.
Yeah. You know, well, two things, you know, one is like you said, I think a lot of it is how people handle fear. You know, like you said, some people handle fear differently, but I think all of them are rooted in that fear. Like even the mayor is scared, but he's just denying it because he doesn't want to accept the reality. But it's there. You know what I mean? That monster is under his bed, whether he wants to admit it or not. And I don't think he was ever, which it kind of reveals, obviously, once not to jump around too much, but once actual people start getting eaten later on 4th of July and stuff, and then he ends up finally admitting it. But,
well, his kid was there too. Which was, I think, a very powerful line. But also, like, aside from, like, him denying it because of fear, it's also, like, it makes sense. Like, if Amity Island is a place that only makes its money on 4th of July, like, it makes a majority of its money through tourism, then this mayor, who is, like, handling the economy, basically, of this island, is going to make sure they can fucking make money and survive the rest of the year. And so that's why when they're in that hospital, this is this scene that is just so powerful to me. When Brody's like, this is what you're going to do. You're going to sign this piece of paper. And you see the mayor muttering to himself, like, okay, August. Because Brody had told him, is like, right now, if we act now, we can still have August. And the mayor's still thinking, like, okay, maybe we can still have August. And Brody's like, oh, forget August. We're done with that now. Like, summer's over. Like,
yeah, just kill the fucking shark. Who cares what happens after?
So, yeah, it's very powerful stuff. I think that's why I wanted to say the line that the mayor says, we've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July. When he says that line, I'm kind of just like, I don't know. There's something about the delivery of that line I love so much.
Yeah, and it's a very movie trailery line. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know. My audience cheered when he said it. It's such an iconic line.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I mean, even, what's funny is, like, I totally understand the links people can make to COVID when this, like now applying into this movie, but I separate it so much now. And maybe it's because, like, I have this, like, egotistical need to have an interesting opinion, but it almost feels too obvious when I watch it now. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, of course it's a COVID-y, parallel. There are parallels you can make. But then, so I instinctively, I got to think of something more interesting than that. You know what I mean?
So what does it make you think of?
I guess, well, overall, obviously COVID's a big part of it. And that's a recent validation of the general stupidity of society, if that makes any sense. And how, like I said, how people handle, fear and how people handle these things, because some people are also super eager to go out and kill it and to go and, do crazy shit just because they just see it as like an opportunity to show your masculine pride,
Yeah. Yeah, immediately you see a bunch of boats out there. Some guys are just throwing dynamite in the water.
Yeah, man. And also, like, I mean, do you have any, a part of the societal, fear implications or whatever you want to call it? Do you have any basic fears of the ocean or any like, are you afraid of coming across sea life if you ever go to the beach or anything? Like, do you have any of those types of fears?
I've never had any water-based fears. Like, I've never been scared of swimming. I've never been scared of, like, oceanic life. I mean, sharks are obviously, like, everyone's scared of sharks. They're terrifying.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be one of those people, like, how there's some people that can go, like, shark diving where they'll, like, get in a cage in a scuba suit, sort of like how what Hooper does towards the end. Like, that's a thing you can just do for fun if you want to. Like, I'm not doing that shit just because, like, sharks are truly terrifying to me. But the ocean is something I'm just, like, fascinated by, because if you look at deep sea creatures, man, it's like we talk about aliens and the existence of aliens, right? There are creatures down there that we haven't even discovered yet. And when you see images of them sometimes, like when you see, like, pictures, what I Google image search a lot is, like, whales, like blue whales at scale with divers, and it's just seeing how fucking big these things are. Or, like,
I know, dude,
fish that are in the deep sea where they literally have lights attached to their fucking head because that's how, like, evolution works. Like,
yeah.
That stuff is just more fascinating to me. What about you? Like, do you have any fears?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think, like, I get scared of, the unknown, some of those, like, kind of bigger, existential elements, right? Like, like that's, I'm like, sometimes I'm fascinated by like certain like Lovecraftian horror or cosmic horror that's out in space. But the same kind of fear is also in the ocean sometimes for me. Because like you said, there's a lot of shit that we don't know or cannot understand because we don't have the technology to get in there and see. Also, I mean, in general too, I have a newfound both fear and respect for the ocean after I almost drowned when I was 16. Which you know that story.
Yeah, tell that story.
Yeah. It's so I went swimming, body surfing in Hawaii when I was 16 with my stepdad. And to summarize it quickly, I was a skinny little kid. I was 16 years old. Like I was very skinny, didn't have a lot of like stamina and strength. And I went too far out where the current was really strong. And my feet were above the bottom, so I had to like actually use my muscles to stay afloat. And I ended up getting splashed by waves again and again, like being like forcing me underwater with each wave. And as I got tossed underwater, I swallowed gulps of salt water each time. So I kept having to swim back up, catch a breath, get chucked underwater right immediately. And my feet, again, the whole time were not touching the ground. So like that's all I was trying to do is swim enough forward so my feet can touch the bottom so I can run and stand upright.
Yeah.
And eventually though, I started getting more and more exhausted, and both my stepdad and a lifeguard came out to get me out at the same time. And they both kind of, on either side kind of took me out. The lifeguard is asking me like, "Hey, do you know where we are?" And I was like, "Yeah." And like I was conscious and everything, but they went and sat me down, and I was hyperventilating. It was my first time I've ever hyperventilated. I was literally sitting there just like, why am I breathing so fast? Like I was just confused. And they put an oxygen mask on me and lay me down. They were mostly trying to make sure I didn't get water in my lungs, which didn't happen, thankfully. And I was laying there with the oxygen mask on me, and I looked down at myself, and I see the bottom half of my legs, like my shin to my feet, my legs turn purple. And
you've told me the story plenty of times. I'm just still like shocked by it.
And like I said, the oxygen mask, did its job. There was no water in my lungs. I was okay and everything. They kind of took my, blood pressure, whatever, like check my heart rate, make sure everything's all good to go, and they sent me on my way. And my stepdad took me to an ice cream shop afterwards. And I was like, and I was looking, and I was like, "Do you think I should get a single or double scoop?" And he just cut me off like, "Get whatever the fuck you want," he said.
Also, I think it's pointed that it was your like stepdad. Like if he like he's like, "I fucked up here." Like
yeah, and like to be clear, he did not. You know what I mean?
No. But there's like
exactly
the whole thing of like get whatever you want does kind of say that a little bit.
He's like, "I have to go back and tell the story.
I have to say this to your mom."
Yeah. So with that being said, to bring it back to this movie though, there is like, I do have like kind of a little bit of a PTSD around the ocean. I'm still down to go out and, to beaches and stuff. It's not like this like fucked me up, but I do have this in the back of my head of like, if I swim far out, I will be at the mercy of nature. And I think that's what Jaws kind of taps into in a different way, just because there is that feeling of like how helpless you really are when you're out in the water, when you're with element like matter, that your body isn't equipped to handle.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much about like the way humans will react to a force that's out of their hands. Like what, and I think this movie does a great job in exploring every aspect of that reaction. Like we already discussed, in a way, it's like saying that just right now makes me think of Close Encounters too. Like Close Encounters deals with that in an interesting way, which is like, okay, UFO comes. What would everyone's reaction be to that? Like, how would every different person react to that? Some people would be like immediately trying to figure it out or race to the location. Some people would just be in denial. The government would try to hide it, right? I think Spielberg's really good at just being like, let me explore boots on the ground people, how they would react. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's what makes his movies so applicable, or what's the word, like acceptable to most people.
Accessible, like regular.
Accessible, thank you. Applicable, acceptable.
It's okay. I've been there. Podcasting is hard sometimes, man.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
It's ordinary people under extraordinary circumstances, the classic Spielberg move, right?
Yeah, but they all have like very human moments. It's very rooted in that, which is what Spielberg's so genius at. Of getting those tiny little beats. All of his movies have that, right? Those little, and people call him sentimental, but it's what makes his movie so human.
Well, okay, that's a great tangent, because I think we can use that to talk about he does that with Brody so well. So Brody's someone that's a New York cop that moves to Amity Island because like later is revealed that New York is too dangerous to like raise a kid in, you know what I mean? And also just the idea of like, what I find interesting is that this movie came out in the 70s. Scorsese's covered plenty of times how scary of a place 70s New York was, right?
Yeah.
And how he talks about how like you never feel like you can make any progress there. And he thought maybe coming to a smaller island, those problems would be solved. And what's interesting is that like, no, humans are kind of the same everywhere. But I think what I was going to get to is that he's a fish out of water. The movie does such a brilliant job immediately establishing small things that make him feel even more out of it and even less at home. Like, his character introduction is him already being awake because the sun was shining through the room and they had bought the house in fall and now it's summer.
Yeah, and they're not used to it.
One of my favorite moments is just that like him, like you were mentioning just now, tiny gestures, right? Him picking up the wrong phone.
Yeah, or like this isn't like much of like a tiny gesture, but like when all the people were getting ready to go out and hunt the shark and everything was really chaotic. And this is when Richard Dreyfuss first appears, during that kind of hectic part, how he didn't know anyone's names and needed help from the other cop to go and call out certain people because it's a tighter knit community and he's not part of it.
Exactly how he won't go in the water because he's scared of the water. Like there are certain things. And I mean, obviously that makes you root for him even more when he is later on in the ocean and he becomes our hero. You root for him because he has all these things that going against him. But he's just like, the thing about Roy Scheider in this movie, man, he's like, he kind of feels like my dad. He feels like all our dads in a way. Where, like, I don't know if you've had this experience with your dad, Chris, but like with me, it's just like when I was a kid and I would obviously look up to my dad. I would copy his every move. If my dad was someone that could hold court, and he can still hold court very well at dinner parties and everything. He's the one that's telling the most jokes. He's always the one trying to make people laugh. I would later just copy his jokes all the time. Like I would just mimic him. I would try to be like him. And I also, from my perspective, would always see him kind of always exhausted. And Roy Scheider has that vibe where he's always tired. And then there's that dinner table scene where his son is literally mimicking him, where he's like, he picks that glass and his son picks the milk. They cross hands. It's, I don't know if you've had that moment when you were like a kid looking up to a parent and just like trying to copy them. You know what I mean?
I never did it deliberately, but I obviously picked up a lot of my father's mannerisms subconsciously. And I didn't fully realize it until my girlfriend at the time visited him with me. And she was pointing out, like, there are some things that your dad does that I'm like, that tripped me out kind of thing. If either my dad's wife or my girlfriend at the time heard one of us speak from another room, they would think it was someone else. Like if my dad spoke, my girlfriend at the time thought it was me speaking from another room. There are certain things like that happen that, they're just very similar things. But I never deliberately copied him as a kid. Like I never thought like, oh, I'm going to mimic his.
I mean, I wasn't doing that either. I wasn't being like, that's mine later. It's just like things that I remember like as a kid, I just thought like, as a kid, I wasn't thinking I'm going to copy my dad. As a kid, I was like, that's a cool thing to do. I'm just going to do that. And then later on, my mom would call. He's like, oh, he's just saying the same joke that you said yesterday or whatever. And then awesome. I remember being called out on that and being like, oh, did I just copy? You know what I mean? And so there's something about like, again, the way Roy Scheider is portrayed in this movie, like when he's at that dinner table and his wife and Hooper are talking and he's in the middle. Ellen Brody is kind of nervous and talking to Hooper about like his expertise in sharks. Like, oh, I heard you're in sharks. And Hooper's talking about his expertise, and then Brody's just in the middle. He's not saying anything, but he's like opening up the wine bottle. And that like expression of him just being so exhausted and tired and stressed while opening up the wine bottle, and the blocking being him being between them and not saying anything, like that just tells a story. His life is fractured into two: his job as the chief of police of this town that he doesn't understand and this danger of sharks, and then thinking about his family and how like he brought his family over here.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's so much small characterization moments, which, again, I can say this again and again, but it's something that Spielberg is so fucking good at. And it's like frustrating because he makes it look so easy. You know what I mean? He makes it look like it's so natural. Even in that dinner scene, yeah, like you said, how he pours himself like a full ass glass of wine too, because he's clearly stressed. Again, it tells you what you need to know without saying a word.
Oh my God,
it flows naturally.
It's like he pours himself like a tall glass, like just a full on glass.
Yeah,
and then he gives them a little bit of like he pours a little bit of wine in each of their cocktail glasses.
Yeah. But yeah, even like the walk and talks with the mayor too are perfectly blocked. Same deal. They're framed a certain way where you'll see Brody and Hooper on either side with the mayor in the middle. Like they're both on either side trying to kind of ganging up on the mayor. You know, there's a lot of that going on throughout. You know, obviously,
I love
like
the mayor's suit so much. The little anchors.
Dude, I know. I said that too because basically my sister was watching it for the first time when I was watching Jaws.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, cool. Cool.
And so throughout though, yeah, whenever they're doing the scenes of the mayor, you know, I turned over and I was like, don't his suits make you just want to punch him? Like, they're so like striped. They're very like Saul Goodman-y.
Yeah.
Even though I know Saul Goodman came after, I have this like PTSD instinct to say, because no, dude, don't like commenters always fucking correct me whenever I say that.
This was when we had the reaction channel. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just burned in my brain to make it clear that I know the chronology.
I just think it's such a like I understand and I empathize with you, but it's also so dumb that you're like, and I know Better Call Saul came after a 1975 movie. Like,
dude, people did that with Robin Hood Men in Tights, and when I said like, oh, it's the Austin Powers joke, people were like, actually, Austin Powers came after.
Well, okay, to be clear, Austin Powers and Robin Hood Men in Tights, I kind of get that train of thought.
They're both 90s movies, actually, huh? Come to think of it.
Yeah. This is like so different. So I would feel like an audience member would have brain damage if they commented below, he knows that Better Call Saul came after.
I just learned to stop underestimating what people comment. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like...
But you are right. It's very Saul Goodman-y. Like the anchors on the suits. I fucking loved it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I want to talk about Brody some more just because I love him so much. I love Roy Scheider in this movie so much. That dinner table scene, it's just one of my favorite scenes, so that's why I keep invoking it. I remember like that scene was just like playing like gangbusters in theaters. Like when it reveals that the kid is copying his every move, people were just laughing. It was so engaging. And then when Richard Dreyfuss comes in and he just immediately like starts eating his meal and he asks, dude, the tiny moment where he just asks Chief Brody, he's like, how was your day? And they both start laughing. It's like, that shit just isn't in movies. Like that feeling of like, these are humans that have had a rough fucking day.
Well, and you see their relationship building because of it too. You know what I mean? They're both like letting it bond them, which is like kind of, it's good screenwriting, you know, when you actually use that as an opportunity. I mean, like, that's how you make characters have compelling friendships. I mean, Star Wars does shit like that all the time, which is what made, you know, Luke and Han Solo's relationship so interesting, or like Han Solo and Princess Leia. You know, they all have those little beats where they're all kind of exhausted together.
Yeah.
You know?
Guys, if you talk to Chris long enough, he will bring up Star Wars no matter what. Like, that'll just come up.
Yeah, it's a pinnacle, you know. It's like, if we're going to talk about good movies, I mean, yeah, Star Wars did this too.
Yeah, no, I suppose Star Wars is a good movie. I feel like we could say that.
Yeah, I feel like that's a safe thing to say.
Yeah. I don't know if you felt this, but watching this movie and seeing how certain conversations were blocked. You mentioned every conversation with Brody and the mayor. I mentioned the dinner table scene. But even like when they're pulling out the shark carcasses or whatever you want to call it, like everything he ate. And it's basically just a shot of Richard Dreyfuss, like kind of being grossed out, but pulling stuff, and Brody's in the back, right? And it's just this one shot. I sometimes get a little upset. I'm like, yeah, we just lost. Did we lose the art of blocking in movies? Where it's either an extreme of like, this has to now be a oneer, where it has to be so showboaty, like it has to look like phenomenal, or it's the most stale, lazy shit you've ever seen. I just see stuff like this. Again, I'm not even talking about the stuff on the boat. I'm talking about when they're on the island, where I'm just like, where did we lose this? You know?
I don't, it's hard for me to say whether or not I agree with that. Not in a bad way, but because like I feel like Jaws is such like a it's a standard that's so unrealistic to compare. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying we shouldn't strive for it, but I'm also like, you know, I feel like, yeah, blocking is something that I do think that has been lost a lot. I do think good blocking still exists in movies nowadays, but I think like, I don't know, it's hard to say. I need to think about that one for a second, to be completely honest with you.
Okay, cool. I'll give you a few minutes.
Yeah, just let me sit here in silence for a little while I think about that.
No, I get you. I think like, yeah, I guess one half of me is just like, why isn't every movie as good as Jaws? And I understand that's ridiculous. But the other half is like, I watch a lot of shit, man.
Yeah, no, well, this is what I guess really where I agree with you is that like, yeah, blocking isn't prioritized the same way as it used to be,
Yeah.
you know? And I feel like that's a safe take, you know?
100%. I mean, I don't know,
So
man.
much characterization is done through dialogue and stuff now instead of just showing it in very simple ways.
Yeah, there's not much more I can say to that without me starting to sound whiny, but it is something I thought about. By the way, I was mentioning that scene where they're pulling the shit out of the tiger shark to see like if there's any proof because they were trying to cut it open to see if it's the right shark or not.
Yeah.
I love that tiny moment where they figure out where the shark is from because there's a license plate inside of it.
Oh, yeah. I know. He says it right before he throws out the license plate.
God, it's that shit that Spielberg's so good at. It's just that tiny extra visual touch. Like he just knows that like we need to see it, you know? I did this trick with this movie because I was like, I just want to know if this can work. Because I remember Soderbergh did this experiment with Raiders of the Lost Ark, where on Soderbergh's website, Steven Soderbergh put an edition of Raiders of the Lost Ark, but he turned it black and white and he put the Social Network music over it. So you couldn't hear any of the dialogue. It was just Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea behind it was to see, like, watch that movie to just look at the blocking and see if how much of the story it's still being told without taking away the music, without taking away the color. So in the middle of Jaws, I put this movie on mute. And for 10 minutes, I just watched it with no dialogue and no music. And I don't watch this movie a lot. I watch it once a year. So yes, I know a lot of the story. But Jesus Christ, man, I could tell, like, you could see what's going on and you can understand where these characters are at emotionally. It's fucking insane.
Like we were just saying too, that's what Spielberg that's his bread and butter. You know what I mean? All of his movies have that. You can go through his entire filmography and they all have like some genius blocking moment where you watch and oh, what the fuck, man? From E.T., even all the way up to, we talked about Indiana Jones, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Like they even say what you will about that movie. There's some really good blocking in that movie.
Well, I think you and I mentioned it we mentioned it in our Kingdom of the Crystal Skull commentary track when we were doing commentary tracks on Patreon, that like a bad Spielberg movie is still well directed.
Exactly. It's still made by a genius.
Yeah, so they're
crazy.
always going to look good.
Do you want to talk a little bit about Hooper?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
I love Hooper.
Richard Dreyfuss, especially in this movie, reminds me of like what I was talking about when I was talking about Bob Hoskins in Roger Rabbit, which is like, he feels like a guy. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, and it's so... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, he has a hairy chest. Like, he just, like, a scruffy beard. He shows up, and he's, like, smart and wealthy, sure, but he feels like a person, and it's the thing that we genuinely miss in movies today, where movie stars just do not look like Richard Dreyfuss anymore.
Yeah, I mean, and Richard Dreyfuss is such a likable actor, too, and I feel like, I forgot about how much I like him whenever I see him in movies.
His characters are... If you heard anything about him, he's like a major fucking asshole.
That check. Okay, sure, fair enough. I guess really what I mean is, yeah, his performances are very likable. You know,
I just got ready for a bunch of comments being like, giving you the whole like, oh, you actually, yeah.
yeah, fair enough. Appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, I think there's something that I kind of connect with Hooper a little bit. I'm not nearly as smart as he is or anything like that by any shred of the imagination, but in terms of like, feeling like that guy who kind of knows the thing and no one listens to me saying the thing, and I get frustrated by it because I feel like I'm so right, but you're just not getting it in your fucking head. I can be that guy for better or worse.
Well, especially I thought of you a lot when the mayor, Brody, and Hooper are trying to get it across the mayor's head. Like, listen, this shark's head is fucking huge. You cannot let the beaches open. Are you insane? The mayor's still like, no, the beaches are going to be open. And Hooper just starts laughing.
Yeah.
I thought of you a lot. That felt like a very Chris response.
Yeah, so I think for listeners, sometimes when Altaf and I have a disagreement and I'm being cocky and feel like I'm inherently right, and you'll disagree with me, and I'll be like, okay, cool. Like I'll let it go to kind of let it prove to you and myself that I was right, if that makes any sense.
Well, and also you have a tendency in mid-argument to start laughing because it is that thing with you where you're like, how do you not fucking get it? Like, how is this not like getting across to you? I am making sense. Like I am.
I remember someone brought up during Game of Thrones in one of the first episodes. This isn't spoiling anything. It's
that you're Tyrion, like very Tyrion.
Not just that, it's this particular line. It's when Tyrion makes a counter argument because they're accusing him of something. And they just say like, gag him, like, quiet him. And he's like, why? Am I starting to make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I can see why someone would say like, oh, that's Chris or whatever.
Well, immediately my girlfriend at the time said that. She turned to me, she's like, that's you.
I think you and I have this inside joke where whenever there's a sarcastic character on screen, it's so easy to say, oh, that's so Chris, to the point where Chris and I share an HBO Max account, and Chris, to fuck with me, knowing that I would understand what he was doing, you can set your profile as a character from Warner Brothers or one of HBO Max's like library. Chris set his profile as Chandler from Friends. And I called him, I'm like, fucking Chandler, and you died. You're like, I'm so happy you got it. Like, you knew what I was going for.
Do you remember what I made yours?
No.
It was Velma, the Mindy Kaling.
But the Mindy Kaling Velma.
Because I created us like you said, I created us an HBO Max account and I just set profiles for each of us.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's so good.
Anyway, though, with that being said, so I love the character of Hooper. I feel like, he's a friendly dude. And it was fun to see his like kind of pissing contest he ends up having with Quinn.
Oh my God.
Later on.
Well, Hooper also comes in at the perfect time.
Yeah.
Right when like the town starts freaking out and Brody is like above his skis a little bit, that's when the expert comes in. Be like, hey, listen, I know a little bit about sharks. And then it's nice to see Brody have a sidekick.
Yeah, you feel that wave of relief too, because Brody's been kind of dying on his own hill alone for a little bit, and now he actually has someone with more expertise, which actually that's another part. I don't know if I want to call it like a fear, but I guess a psychological element to this movie that I really appreciate, that I think is still really applicable and will kind of always be applicable for as long as there are scientists that exist, is that like, it's basically the idea of telling, regular people to accept that there are people that know more than you about a certain subject. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when it comes to the mayor, it's like you have to tell the mayor, like, listen, this guy, this scientist dude, this, marine, I forgot what his actual expertise was, but like basically, the shark man, knows more than you do. And the beach is dangerous, and I feel like going off of what you said about COVID, and people talk about that with all sorts of scientific issues, right? We can get lost in of how many times fucking scientists try to warn us, tell us things are bad ideas. How many doctors?
COVID, you mean the Fauci ouchie, Chris?
Yeah. But But even, even outside of, like I said, particular, COVID, people talk about that with environmentalism too.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. I mean, climate change, you can take COVID out of it, but climate change has been the one thing where it's just like, guys, like,
Exactly. And so I think that's one thing that this movie explores, that I think
Mm-hmm.
is done obviously really well, that I think is just still very universally relatable to this day.
Yeah, it's interesting because I honestly don't think Spielberg had that in mind to be like, I'm going to tell a story about human nature, which is what this movie is. I think Spielberg just has these right instincts of like, I, okay, if I'm going to make a shark movie, I need to show the actual, like, real people and how they would react to this. So how would they react to it, and him questioning that. And also, I know a lot of it is from the book as well, so I'm not saying Spielberg came up
Yeah.
with everything, but still, I think Spielberg has just like, he's a very instinctual filmmaker. You know what I mean? Um, so
Yeah, he just knows what connects with people.
he's a magician when it comes to that. It's really fascinating. Like, he is a mainstream filmmaker. He
And
like,
he can do magic, dude. Like, he can act, like, he can do magic.
yeah,
Like, he can pull a rabbit out of a hat, dude.
it's insane. Like, well, the reason why Jaws took so long was because he kept doing like card tricks. Like,
I like the idea of this side plot where Spielberg's super obsessed with magic.
Well,
He keeps
so-
holding production.
No. So Sid Sheinberg was visiting set at Martha's Vineyard, right? And they were all in the ocean. And yeah, there's this whole myth of like the shark wouldn't work. But what really happened was, like, Spielberg was on the boat just being like, pick a card.
Roy, Richard, come here. Is this your card? No, Steven.
Steven, we need to shoot. We're losing light.
They're like bobbing around on a boat, like out in the middle of the ocean. The camera guy's just waiting. Everyone's ready to roll camera.
Okay, I think, is there anything else you wanted to touch on Richard Dreyfuss before we get into the third biggest character in this movie?
No, I'm ready to move on to Quinn.
So let's talk about Quint, Robert Shaw. There's much been talked about one of the best like character introductions of all time in a movie.
Yeah.
Which is him scraping against a chalkboard, basically being like, listen, I do this shit. I'm good at this shit. This is how much it's going to cost you. You're going to need to do it quick. And then he like walks out. Like, he's like, I don't need to hear from this anymore. So
Too many people. It's too many humans for Quint.
he's like, again, he was one of the actors, especially in this movie, that I'm like, that's a person. That doesn't feel like a movie actor. That feels like a guy.
Yeah, I know. I like that expression, by the way. I want to start using it. I know I want to say I kind of goofed on it during Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but I'm like, yeah, there are movies where I'm like, oh, that's a guy. That's not an actor, but that's a guy.
Yeah, I think I just crave that in movies nowadays, you know?
You crave a lot of guys.
Yeah, hell yeah, dog.
Who doesn't, dude?
Okay, so, but yeah, Quint is obviously like a very iconic movie character. He's a great foil to Richard Dreyfuss as like, I love the scene where he holds his hands, you know? I've had a lot of men in my life, like older than me or like my contemporaries, where I feel like I have so much to prove to them because I haven't like, I haven't done work outdoors. I can't do manual labor. And
You got soft hands,
I got soft hands. So I can heavily relate to that feeling. Even though I wasn't like this rich boy, I can heavily relate to the feeling of being like, oh yeah, I haven't done a day's work.
Yeah, no, I definitely can relate to that too, Yeah, I think that's another element why I liked Hooper so much, or at least I felt drawn to him. I'm not saying he was superior to Quint or anything like that. I think both of them were kind of two sides of the same coin. They both had the same passion for the sea. And you end up seeing them bond over it later when they're comparing their scars and getting drunk together.
Oh my god, my favorite scene in the movie. Like, that is hands down, like, those three guys in a boat, I could hear them talk forever.
I know, when they're all singing. Well, and also two things. One is I just love the joke Hooper makes when he shows his chest. He's like, she broke my heart, and starts dying laughing. But also the tension around it too, just the build up. Once you actually realize that, like, when you see the barrel float while they're all laughing and singing, you're like, oh, fuck me.
Oh, dude. Okay, there's multiple things to this. One is Quint's entire story of like his relationship with sharks, how he saw all of his men die. The way Spielberg blocks that scene is Roy Scheider is standing up the entire time. Hooper and Quint are sitting down. They're getting drunk. They're finally bonding, sharing scars. But still, like, Roy is just standing up, And then when they start singing, Chief Brody finally sits down. And the moment Chief Brody gets comfortable, that's when it cuts to the barrel outside. It's brilliant editing. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, man, it's fucking genius. I mean, everything, just so we don't go on too long on this episode, but, at least for me, I'll just get my thoughts out on everything once they get on the boat, is just so interesting because I don't know anything about that stuff. I don't know anything about how fishing boats work or what and I'm sure a lot of people watching have never tried hunting a shark, so I'm going to assume. But everything of them trying to like harpoon it with the gun and then getting the barrel to drag on, attaching another barrel, trying to keep it afloat. It's so interesting because it's so unconventional, because they could have easily done something where they just have rifles and are trying to shoot at a shark for 45 minutes or whatever. Mm-hmm. But they actually do try to do intelligent things to try to outsmart it.
Yeah, and, people already know this, but the whole barrel idea came from the fact that the shark wouldn't work, so the barrels became a good solve, and then it's one of the greatest choices in horror history.
I know, but it's so effective. I mean, again, like you said, it's been talked about to death, right, of how effective it is, and how, like, the fear of what you don't see is often worse than the fear of, what you do see.
Oh, totally. The movie wouldn't be the same if you could see the shark.
Yeah, and when it feels like it's earned too, because you obviously see the shark significantly more in like the last 15 minutes or so.
Oh yeah.
Once it eats Quint and everything.
Okay, so I want to wrap up my thoughts on the boat too. I know we were kind of like speeding through the boat, but it's been talked about a lot. So like, you guys can listen to other podcasts that talk about Jaws.
Yeah.
One thing I'll say is the magic trick with this movie is that I am present no matter what part of the movie I'm in. So when I'm in Amity Island, this could easily be one of those movies where you talk about it in retrospect, and when you're just like, no, see, the Amity Island's good, but the movie really kicks in when they're on the boat. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And you're just waiting for them to get on a boat on a rewatch. This movie works at every aspect and you're present. So when I'm on the island, I'm on the beach, I forget that they're actually going to go in the ocean later. And I've rewatched this movie so many times.
That's true, yeah.
When I'm on the boat with them, it becomes a completely different movie. And I forgot that there was this whole portion where we were on an island.
Yeah, and it feels earned too. It's not like it completely derails. It's not like, you can't skip to everything on the boat having not watched that first half. You know what I mean? They go together perfectly.
Oh yeah, and, you don't get the character dynamics if you don't.
Exactly, it contextualizes everything for you. But yeah, like you said, they're both kind of almost like two different mini movies that are equally as compelling as the other, but they also need each other to exist. It's fucking genius,
Jaws is so good. I want to talk about the ending moment because
yeah, explain why you want to talk about the ending to Jaws, because they would need to hear an explanation.
No, yeah, of course. Sorry, I was just thinking out loud. Quint is dead. Richard Dreyfuss is hiding behind a fucking rock underwater. Like everyone's kind of at an all-time low. The boat's like completely sunk, right? Brody's basically trying to shoot at this thing, and he's trying to get its mouth to be open so he can shoot the tank. And when he shoots it and he says, "Smile, you son of a bitch," I fucking screamed. And I've seen this movie so many times, but every time that moment happens, it's like Sean Fennessy in his Letterboxd review said that this movie's like a bass hit. And that's what it feels like to me. It is so fucking satisfying when he says that. The shark blows up, and then Spielberg does this great shot of like it slowly bleeding underwater and sinking. Like it makes you want like, no, this thing is dead. Like process it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't just end there. You could just end there. But he's like, no, I will have this moment where obviously Richard Dreyfuss comes up. They swim together. And they're talking about what day it is. And like, I can't believe I was scared of the water,
Yeah. I know. Well, even like shortly before that too, I remember I watched it with a girlfriend at the time. And it was her first time really watching the movie. I think she might have seen portions of it or something like that, but she still had just as much like stress and anxiety around it as anyone else would. You know, it's not like an aged movie. Really, what kicked in the panic for her was after Quint gets eaten. Which, side note, you know, Quint getting eaten is always kind of tragic to me because the dude like barely survived sharks and had this whole relationship with him, and it's fucked up knowing he died getting eaten by a shark.
Yeah, but there's also this moment where after he tells that story and the shark starts coming out, and you can see Quint being reckless. Like,
that's true too. It's triggering PTSD for him for sure.
And yeah, there's that moment where you could see like when Quint starts singing again, and Brody and Hooper look at him. They're both thinking the same thing. They're like, oh, this guy's not afraid to die. Like, this guy will die, you know?
Yeah, and take them both down with him, too, in the process, if it means that they'll kill the shark. But,
sorry, continue.
With that being said, though, it was after Quint gets eaten, and then Brody runs back into, like, the front of the boat, and he's, like, looking for the rifle. And right when he gets the rifle, remember how the shark just fucking burst through the window?
Yeah.
And he's like barely holding it back, and he ends up shoving the tank in his mouth. That whole sequence, my girlfriend at the time was like freaking out. Like as soon as it just ripped through the window, because they're like, "Oh shit, it's right there now."
Yeah.
The shark is not playing around; it's getting real.
I just want to say when I screamed after he said "Smile, you son of a bitch." When I saw it in the theaters, obviously people freaked out. When I saw it in the IMAX release, but there's something about it where. Last night when I heard him say "Smile, you son of a bitch," and it blew up, I freaked out, and then you're gonna laugh because it sounds very silly, but I immediately start tearing up. Like I immediately was just like, Jesus, man. Like I get this way sometimes when a movie feels so cathartic to me, my emotions don't know where to go, and I just start crying.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I've never actually teared up from that sort of feeling in a movie, but I've felt it, but my body hasn't expressed it in like that physical of a way yet. But do you know what movie makes me feel that way though? You can probably guess a couple.
Lion King makes you feel that way when
the opening to Lion King, absolutely.
Well, I was gonna say when Simba roars, you know, at the end.
That too, but that's more of an emotional thing. I'm talking about when a movie is so well crafted that it gives me like a euphoria.
So yeah, a literal 1-to-1. No, give me some examples. Go for it.
The Bespin fight scene between Darth Vader and Luke in Empire Strikes Back. Basically, their duel when it happens.
Especially the way it starts too, like that shot of the stairway.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Just hearing James Earl Jones just be like, "The Force is with you, young Skywalker, but you are not a Jedi yet." Like as soon as he says that, I'm like, "Oh, yay!"
What are some others?
But anyway, though, I think Everything Everywhere All at Once does that for me too.
Do you have a specific moment?
I think, you know, the movie's so fucking chaotic, so I can't place exactly when this part happens, but when it starts rapidly just cutting through a cajillion parallel universes of Michelle Yeoh standing still, like center frame, and it's all these different variations of her. Yeah. And some of them are like anime, some are monsters, some are, you know, that stuff, like seeing that shit happen, just knowing that movie was achieved just makes me like all, I don't know what to feel.
It's that feeling where it can only be described with like movies ! Where you're just like, oh wow. Can I point out one other moment that makes me feel that way?
Yeah, absolutely.
In the final act of RRR, when I forget the other actor's name, but the two friends basically are fighting.
Ram and Beam?
Ram and Beam, yes. Ram and Beam are fighting so in sync that like each of their move carries over to the next one. And the specific thing that just makes me like explode every time I watch it is both orgasmically and emotionally.
Thank you. I know. I'm sure every listener hearing that was like, explode.
Yeah, that's why I just said it. Is when he shoots the arrow into the guy riding the motorcycle starts running off on its own. Beam sees it. Beam kicks the motorcycle does a spin in the air. Beam catches it and then throws it. It's just like, my fucking God. Like,
yeah, no, trust me, when I laugh, it's not like in a condescending way to the movie. I'm more laughing because describing that movie out loud is so fucking insane, but the movie pulls it off. I don't know how, but the movie just pulls it off like nothing.
Emotionally, yeah, man. It's movies rule. I think Jaws reminds me that movies fucking rule. It's the
That
best.
should be the title of this episode. How Jaws remind us that movies rule.
Yeah, they can be so good. Like, it gives me hope when you watch Jaws and you're like, yeah, they can be so good. We can make shit like this. It's okay.
Yeah.
We can kill each other. We can like hate each other, but we can also make Jaws. Like, you know what I mean?
At least we got Jaws, guys.
Okay, well, let's move on to write-ins.
Were you about to wrap up? I caught that.
I was. We asked you guys how Jaws changed you. You emailed us in at moviesthatchangedus@gmail.com. Follow us on Patreon, Instagram, or here on YouTube at Movies That Changed Us to know the next time you can email us in and what movie we're doing. So
yeah.
Let's see. We got one write-in from Daniel Walsh, our regular.
It's our boy.
Our regular at our channel. Daniel Walsh writes in, happy summer, nice dudes. It's your boy once again, Dan. For this write-in, I should re-emphasize that I'm only 16, so I didn't grow up with this film during the time that most lovers of this movie did. Yeah, always forget that he's like 16. But I still have a fondness and appreciation for it. I first saw this around 5 years ago, about a day before me and my family were going down to the shore for the week. We would go to the Wildwoods in New Jersey, and it was just a small little shore town. The film was so scary to me because we were going to the beach the next day. It doesn't scare me now, but it is still amazing at creating tension through Spielberg's directing and, of course, John Williams' horrifying score. This has quickly gone on to become one of my favorite movies of all time, as well as the ultimate summer movie in my book. I haven't gone a year since without watching this film. All three of the leads are some of the most instantly likable and well-developed characters in all of film history. It remains my dad's favorite movie ever, and every summer I develop a new fascination for the film, and I learn more about it with each year. It is a film that gets better with age, and this year is special since it's the 50th anniversary. That about wraps it up for now, so until next time, smile, you son of a bitch! Thanks for covering this one, nice dudes. This has been your boy, Dan.
Well, thank you so much for writing in, Dan. We hope you enjoyed the episode, or, if you listened to it. But
yeah.
One thing we forgot to mention out loud, it is the 50th anniversary, which is crazy, which is one big driving factor for why, I think we agreed to do this movie, because this is one that we built up for a little bit of like, oh, we'll get to Jaws eventually. But at the 50th anniversary, and it's summertime, we were trying to think of good summer movies, and we were like, okay, you know what? Let's fucking do Jaws.
I just want to point out, Chris was doubtful to do this movie because he didn't think millennials would like it.
All right, man. I'm not gonna open that can of worms. It's not what I said. Come on.
No, I'm just fucking with him, guys. Honestly, Chris wanted to do Jaws as well. I'm honestly just fucking with him. Well, join us for the bonus episode on our Patreon at Movies That Changed Us to watch us play movies that played us. To watch us play Guess the Weapon, a game that I created for Chris where he's going to have to guess the movie weapon. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Last but not least, stay nice, dudes.